Each year, the number of youth requiring hospital treatment for physical assault-related injuries would fill every seat in 9 stadiums. More than 2/3 of children reported at least one traumatic event by age 16. Traumatic events include, but are not limited to, emotional, physical, or sexual abuse, community or school violence, witnessing or experiencing domestic violence, national disasters or terrorism, commercial sexual exploitation, sudden or violent loss of a loved one, refugee or war experiences, military stressors, assault, neglect, life-threatening illness, and all of this information is taken from Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. As teachers, we will have students who have experienced trauma. While we are not psychologists, we do have a responsibility to recognize the signs of trauma and to create a safe classroom for all students. Teachers can accomplish this by learning about trauma-informed teaching and applying it in the classroom. So what does it mean to be a trauma-informed teacher? It is understanding what trauma is, how it impacts the body, the emotions, behavior, the brain. It is focusing on the student and not their behavior. This means that it's a commitment to learning more about that student and building trust before really focusing on curriculum. It is relationship before curriculum. It is also learning how to respond to behavior in the classroom in a trauma-sensitive manner. And it is recognizing the signs of trauma in students. So what are those signs? Here's a very limited list of some things to watch for. So signs of trauma can include overreacting emotionally or behaviorally or even physically. It's a heightened sensitivity, whether this is to noise, to lights, to sometimes it's more just like a heightened awareness of what's going on in the classroom or around them. It can be difficulty processing new information and struggling with reasoning skills, struggling to express emotions or to manage emotions. Maybe they aren't able to calm down after something happened. It's sometimes distrust in adults or in peers. It can be trying to manipulate their peers or teachers. Argumentative behavior can be a sign, impulsive actions, self-harming behaviors, hygiene issues, substance abuse, risky sexual behavior. All of these things are things to be looking for. So how does trauma influence learning? Research shows that when students are experiencing current trauma or have experienced past trauma, they struggle to learn. Learning is much harder for them. They also lose interest in it, and this results in lower grades and more suspensions. It can just become this kind of cycle that's not good. Also, students can struggle with language and communication. They can struggle to develop healthy relationships with their peers and teachers. They may be withdrawn. They may avoid contact with teachers. They can isolate themselves. So what can we do to effectively care for students and teach our students that are struggling with trauma? I have three things that can be established in the classroom and that can help. The first one is consistency and structure. Having a daily schedule is a huge thing to providing consistency in the classroom. Keeping it up on the board, whether it's the whiteboard or showing in front of the class in the beginning and going over it, can be very helpful. And when that schedule is going to change, it is a very helpful thing to in the beginning class, go up to the students that may struggle with it, write down a piece of paper. This is what we're going to do today. Talk over it with them, and then take a couple minutes to ask them, hey, is there anything that you are concerned about? Do you have any questions? What can we do to make this adjustment better for you? Another thing that's huge is establishing routines in the classroom and then sticking to them so students know what's going to happen and your behavior is predictable. Which, moving on, be predictable in responses to student behavior, whether this is behavior management plan or if it's something that you've talked with students in the beginning of the year about, stick with it, be predictable. Be consistent with expectations and grading. Often students that have gone through trauma are very afraid of not meeting expectations because in their past, that means that if they fail expectations, harm can happen, bad things can happen. It's a very bad thing. So telling them that this is what's expected, but if you don't do it, it's not going to be the end of the world, life will move on, can be a very good thing. It can take some of that pressure off. Point 2, voice and choice. In the classroom, it is very important to show students that their voice is being heard and that they have some choices, they have some control over what happens. So if a student is having a bad day, if they've had a breakdown, just going up to them and taking them aside and asking them, hey, what do you need to feel better, can be a really empowering thing for them. And as the year goes on, you can help them to create strategies and kind of build that ability for them to recognize what they need to feel better, and it can be a great thing. Give choices in curriculum. Ask them how they want to show evidence of learning. Let them make that choice. If presentations are something that's extremely stressful for them, maybe they can start out by doing something different. Just letting them kind of choose what they want to do can take away some of those triggers and help them feel more comfortable before challenging them. And then provide opportunities for students to share their feelings and their strengths. So really focusing on strengths can help students build their confidence. Many times students that have gone through some trauma will struggle with insecurity. Maybe they've been told that, maybe it's something that they've just developed, but it can be a very serious thing for them. So if teachers can really build on those strengths and help them develop that confidence back, it can go a long ways. And then point 3 is establishing trustworthiness and being transparent. So this can look like modeling emotional regulation for students. While you want to have boundaries with your students, you also want to model things for them and tell stories and share with your own life, and that helps build that trust, and it also is transparent and helps them learn. So if you, as the teacher, had a bad experience and you wish you would have done something differently, you can share that with your students, and you can walk through kind of that process in your mind and show them what healthy regulation looks like. And then this next one is very, very important. Use silent signals as often as possible instead of correcting students in front of their peers. If you can avoid correcting students in front of the whole class, do it. It's going to help them trust you. It's going to help you avoid unnecessary negative interactions. It's going to benefit both of you and the student. So some ways to do this are to have note cards. If a student is acting inappropriately, you can jot it down on the note card, say, hey, can you do this instead, and give it to them. And sometimes this won't work, but it's worth trying because, again, you're avoiding calling them out in front of their peers and you're avoiding that humiliation. Developing routines with hand signals. Whether that is having a hand signal for, okay, be quiet, or close your Chromebook or something, that can help you avoid those negative interactions again. Proximity works great sometimes. And then lastly, use prioritize self-care time in the classroom. So whether it looks like just checking with students, hey, like what's going on in your life, how are you feeling about this week, and giving them a chance to really share and talk, that can be a good thing. This isn't always ideal if the class is not comfortable with one another, if it's not that safe place yet, you might not be there yet, but you can also use that time to talk about mental health, to talk about strategies to regulate emotions, to come up with charts in the classroom that can help students communicate those emotions. Many students are still learning to do that. So that's valuable time to have, and also valuable time to model to students and show students that you value them and you value their mental and physical health. So trauma-informed teaching can help teachers make the classroom a place of safety and learning for every student. Implementing those practices can support struggling learners and even transform their lives. All students can heal from trauma, and teachers can play a role in that healing when they practice trauma-informed teaching.